It's time for the Daily Wrap. And welcome to the show. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host, Forbes columnist, and is what some party insiders are calling the frontrunner for the Democratic nomination if Hillary Clinton doesn't run. Is that true?
I'm the dark horse. Keep it under your...
Seriously, under the radar. Rick Unger is here also. She's one of Philadelphia's top attorneys and was once engaged to Corbin Bernsen of LA law fame. Wow. Who knew?
I thought that was secret.
So much in the intro. Heather Hansen, welcome. And finally making her second appearance on the Wrap. She writes for National Review, is a fellow for the Franklin Center and Independent Women's Forum. Jillian Melcher is here. Welcome to you as well.
Thank
Looking
you.
very spring-like. I'm liking it.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, and we're ready for the Daily Download. Distrust between the Obama administration and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now at an all-time high. The Wall Street Journal now reporting that Israel spied on U.S. negotiations with Iran and then passed on the information to members of Congress. Speaker of the House John Boehner puzzled by the report.
I was shocked by the fact that there were reports in this press article that information was being passed on from the Israelis to members of Congress. I'm not aware of that at all.
Would it have been inappropriate if they did?
I'm not sure what the information was, but I'm baffled by it.
Mr. Boehner seems vexed. He seems extremely vexed. Well, anyway, let's go to former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Pete Hoekstra, in our Washington, D.C. studio. Congressman, U.S. has spied on Israel before and vice versa. What has the White House up in arms over this, over the alleged sharing of information with the GOP? So I guess my first question is, one, do you believe the reports? And two, if true, have you seen anything like this before?
This is nothing new. This is not unprecedented. Remember, this is the administration that was accused of listening to the cell phone of Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany. And now, the Iran talks. This is an existential threat to Israel. Do I expect Israel to be trying to listen in and to spy on Iran, the people who are part of the negotiations and others, to find out exactly what's going on, and then perhaps massage it in some way and feed that information to members of Congress for them to really identify what's going on? That's not unprecedented. Remember, most of what we know about what's going on with the Iran nuclear talks are leaks out of the Obama administration about what's going on there. There's no public disclosure, but they are leaking information favorable to them. Israel spying on the participants in the Iran talks, the U.S. spying on friends and allies. These are things that go on in the dirty world of intelligence.
Congressman, it's Rick Unger. I know that you, as the one-time chairman of the Intelligence Committee, would have had the clearance, but I wonder if every member of Congress would typically have sufficient clearance to get this information, and if not, don't you kind of think that the Israelis ought to just share it with people who do have that kind of clearance?
No, I think what's going on here, Rick, is, are they getting top secret classified information? I doubt it. Here's what, again, I don't know specifically the information that the Israelis allegedly stole or, secreted out of these talks, but it wouldn't be, typically classified information about plans and intentions that would threaten the United States. Hey, they're listening into or they're trying to discern exactly what's going on, what are the parameters of a future agreement, weighing that against what the Obama administration is leaking out to the press to try to shape public opinion. And the Israelis are sharing what they may or may not, what they have learned to shape their message to the Israeli public, to perhaps the American public. And they did not go into a congressional office and say to a member of Congress, here's what we've stolen, or here's what we've spied, what we've gotten from our spying on the Iran nuclear talks. They would have gone into a member of Congress's office and said, here's what we believe the parameters of an agreement are starting to look like from sources that that we've gained information from, our allies in Europe, other folks in that, and put a caveat with it saying we're not sure that this is exactly, but this is what we're hearing. Maybe you ought to ask the administration about it.
We will try to do that, absolutely. Congressman, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Always good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's turn to our panel here. You know what the irony is, Heather Hansen, is that the U.S. helped build the very intelligence, the way to spy on the Iranian government, and now it's being turned against us.
That's one of the many ironies here. I mean, the other irony is that we found out they were spying by spying on them, and then the fact that the administration is most upset because this information got back to Congress, information that I'd argue they should be privy to start with. I also think there's an ironic part of this where senators were spied on this summer by the CIA. So our own government has been spying on our government. I think to make as if this is some sort of a big deal and to act like we're aghast at this and it doesn't happen is really pushing it too far and trying to make this into something that will further put President Obama on a better course with regard to these talks instead of focusing once again on the actual content of the talks.
Jillian, President Obama has about, I think, 22 months left in office. Mm-hmm. Can you ever see Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming here and actually having normal relations with an American president as we've seen mostly in the past?
I think it's going to be hard for them to have a productive dialogue. The personal animosity between these two people is so intense right now.
I think it got that way.
Well, I think they just have fundamentally different views about what diplomacy is and the world order that they want to create. And I mean, in addition to that, I would guess that there's probably a personality rift there as well. So it's a lot of things stacked up. But, I think this is just a ridiculous controversy. Of course countries are spying, and of course they're spying on the things that most deeply concern them. It's a no-brainer.
Rick, final word.
I can't believe that anybody would believe John Boehner saying that he didn't believe that there was gambling going on in Las Vegas. Of course he knew. Look, I'm tired of this whole Obama-Netanyahu thing. If anybody checked in with Jim Baker's speech the other night to the J Street people, we have seen this before. We have done this
Not
before.
Lately, though. You're gotta go back to 91.
Well, that's actually modern history in most
or
assessments.
It's 24 years, depending on how you look at it.
And you know what? If we go well past their personal relationship, it's enough already.
And enough already for this segment as well. So coming up next, it looks like Hillary Clinton finally has some competition for the Democratic nomination, kinda. We'll tell you who next. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Julian Melchior. So, do you know the name Martin O'Malley? If you don't, he's the former governor of the great state of Maryland, and some believe he has what it takes to be the next Democratic nominee.
You and I are proud to be members of the Democratic Party. And let the Tea Party measure their success by how many times they can shut down our government. We measure success in jobs and opportunity for all. And let them speak for the sad yesterdays that were. We speak for the better tomorrows that can be.
And because you asked for it, here is more from Mr. O'Malley at the Scott County Democratic Party dinner in a city you're going to hear a lot about, in Davenport, Iowa.
Make no mistake about it. The American dream is what makes America exceptional. Fear and anger never built a great nation. Our country is built by the compassionate choices that we make together to live lives guided by our better angels. We love our country. We love what our country is, and what's more, we love what our country can become. So take pride. Take pride.
Take pride. So, is Mr. O'Malley qualified for the Oval Office? Well, he was a governor for 8 years, so probably. But in a political landscape that's just as much about personality as it is policy, and Martin appears to be lacking in the former, will this work? Then again, Mrs. Clinton isn't going to be hosting the Golden Globes anytime soon either.
As I have gotten older, I have decided we really need camps for adults.
So, how does O'Malley look in the polls? According to a new PPP poll, not well. Hillary Clinton rules with 58%. Vice President Joe Biden lags far behind with 14%. Senator Elizabeth Warren follows with 10%, and Martin O'Malley 2%. So why are we talking about him? Because maybe Hillary's email scandal has given likely voters a pause. New York Post today had a story talking about how Democrats would prefer O'Malley since they don't see Warren as electable and Biden they don't take seriously, so O'Malley suddenly becomes the plan B. Your thoughts, Rick?
Go figure that the New York Post might be wrong yet again. Look, I mean, listening to Governor O'Malley there reminded me of that wonderful episode of Bobby Jindal reading us a bedtime story when responding to the State of the Union. He's not good at it. I got to tell you, I hate to say this about a fellow Democrat. He's an empty suit. There's not much there. He has the right rating. 2% is about all he should ever get. He is not a real contender, and God forbid he should ever become
So what's
one.
appealing about him to
He's
Democrats?
nice looking, but you know,
I actually think there's something that's rather appealing to him for Democrats,
What?
and that is that he has been one of the candidates that's been most aggressive about renewable energy, green technology. And I think that's going to potentially give him an advantage because, you know, people like Tom Steyer are willing to throw a lot of money behind that. But, you know, I have to agree with you. I think 2% rating is about all he should have. Because
that sounds like wishful thinking of a Republican.
If you look, it is, but if you look at it, I mean, that renewable energy thing that he's done has, you know, I think in his term, Maryland sees an electricity hike of about 40%. That's compared to 24% nationwide, and it's really hurting their lowest class.
But I think
He's just not a viable candidate.
Heather, so good argument, and I'll play the contrarian to you playing the contrarian. Solyndra.
yeah, I mean,
You can't run on green energy. I don't think climate change, I think it's a dead issue. People talk about it a lot, but in campaigns it always just goes away.
he's grasping at different people's areas. So in his speech, he talked about America succeeds if women succeeds, because he knows he's got to go after the women vote. And then in his op-ed in the Des Moines Register this weekend, he talked about repealing Dodd-Frank. So he is all over the place trying to get a little bit of Elizabeth Warren and a little bit of Hillary Clinton and maybe a little bit of the green. And I just don't think that he has, and I agree with Rick on this, I just don't think he has the personality to bring it together. I don't know who does. Maybe Jim Webb. We've talked about that
I mean, I
before.
seriously doubt that he understands Dodd-Frank, let alone supporting the repeal of it. There are certainly other Democrats who you could take seriously. He is not one of them. And guess what, folks? It's not going to matter. We know who the Democratic candidate's going to be.
Rick,
I'm
there's
not so
a
sure about
poll
that.
this week that said that she was 15 points down with
Yeah.
Democrats since mid-February.
Yeah,
so that is, but that's
and
considerable.
you saw that most
But
recent poll.
That's
She's
why
still
he polls.
40 points ahead of her
That's
closest.
true, but
that's
That's
why
a
polls-
precipitous drop, and I think that email scandal, even though it's kind of gone away, Democrats weren't very happy with the way that
No,
she
they
handled
were
it.
not happy with it. I wasn't happy with it, as you know. You heard me here every night complaining about how she behaved in it. It doesn't stick, that sort of thing. Unless she decides she doesn't want to be a candidate for some reason, she is the nominee of the
But I
party.
think it's
Or-
a shavings make a pile kind of argument where dead broke when we left the White House. Book door didn't go well, right?
Better argument in the general election.
Right.
Those things.
Well, and it
Sure,
depends-
sure, but then you add email on top of it, and then it
And
just
then what's in the emails?
I don't see too many positives out of Hillary Clinton.
But
I
again,
know she's not
general
running.
election issues that may
Right.
help the
Yeah, and I
Republican
think that's
candidate.
actually a really interesting thing because Hillary is the closest to center, I would argue, of any of these Democratic candidates. I think if you knock her out of the race, things get a lot more extreme and Republicans get a lot more competitive.
Clearly.
Yeah, no doubt.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I think that she's
Which is why they're trying to knock her out of the race.
Yeah, absolutely.
right, but there's no one to pick up the baton.
No.
I mean,
Joe
that's
Biden,
the real
Joe
problem.
Biden is going to make the funniest campaign ever.
If nothing
If
else,
it would be
if we
well
want to
worth
face the
it
deficit
to
of
watch
fun,
it.
I am all for
Yeah,
it.
that's right. We don't need camp.
Well, I wrote a story today actually based on the Ted Cruz running and then the media just jumping in and then the hyperbole was just off the charts, and not just from left-leaning media. There were people on the right as well
yeah.
that just said he is Eric Bolling on
Yeah,
Fox said
yeah.
he should not run for president in any
Too young.
capacity, right? But it's funny because the media just went nuts. So then it got me thinking, boy, what would be the most, forget what would be best for the country, what would be the most entertaining matchup? And could you imagine Ted Cruz versus Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
Talk about polar
Well, in
opposites.
other words, what would be best for us?
What's best for
right.
us?
Just as a
We'd
spectator.
love that.
Yes.
As a spectator sport, I'd pick Chris Christie and Joe Biden, hands down.
Yeah,
That would
would
be
actually be great.
that'd be pretty funny.
I think I would enjoy that.
Chris Christie, he's just going to be fun to watch if he stays
I think
relevant.
We're all auditioning to be writers on Saturday Night Live, apparently.
Well, and the sad thing is, you have these conversations, but what's important to the American people? And what are they looking for? And especially the Democrats. I mean, you speak for them best, but
Didn't
what
I
if-
disagree with that?
Well, best at this table
know Martin
anyway.
O'Malley will
best,
disagree with
Best
it.
at this table anyway. But, someone has to fill that void, and right now it's got to be Hillary.
Yeah.
Can we do a quick test, by the way? Say the Louisiana
Is
governor's
it
name
open
again.
book? Bobby Jindal.
Say his name.
Jindal?
Jindal.
Jindal. Right.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was
Jindal.
Jindal.
I thought it was Jindal.
Well,
Okay.
he still tells a mean bedtime story.
Okay. All right. It's like when the president says Pakistan, and it's Pakistan.
Pakistan.
The
Right.
Taliban.
Jindal, Taliban. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing. One of those
Taliban,
quirky
yeah.
things. Anyway, coming up next on the Daily Wrap, the minimum wage in Seattle is being raised to $15 an hour. Will it be a boom for the economy or a job killer? More next. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. So on April 1st, and no, this won't be an April Fool's joke, Seattle's minimum wage will jump to $11 an hour on its way to $15 an hour by 2017. The law, spearheaded by self-described Seattle City Council member Keishan Saw Amit. Here she is last June on Democracy Now!, celebrating her victory.
This is an absolutely historic moment, not only for Seattle, but for working people all over the nation and even globally. What we won here is the possibility for 100,000 workers, low-wage workers in Seattle, to be lifted out of poverty over the next 10 years. And it signifies a transfer of income of $3 billion from the richest in the city to the bottommost workers, the workers who make the city run.
And she continues.
What a reversal of fortune this is, because for the last several decades, it's been a systematic gushing up of income and wealth from the bottom to the top. And this is one of the first really big fight back against the status quo of income inequality and a race to the bottom for ordinary working people.
Okay, so the Seattle Restaurant Alliance worked with the mayor's office during initial discussions over raising the minimum wage, but at the end did not support the deal. Seattle-based Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, we've heard about him lately, told CNN he isn't sure $15 an hour is the proper wage.
I do think that there are fundamental issues and a larger gap between the haves and have-nots in America. And I applaud the president for taking a stance on raising minimum wage. I'm not sure that the rhetoric around $10 at the federal level or $15 at the state level of Washington is the right number.
Okay, so let's start with Rick Unger. You delved into this topic on Sunday in Forbes. Tell us what you wrote about.
I did. What got my attention on this piece was I began reading stories about how this was having this dire impact on local restaurants in Seattle, and I'm going, how can that be? It hasn't even gone into effect yet. Maybe it's going to have a terrible result, but I don't know how they're proclaiming that. So I began to look at the data, and it was fascinating. This all began with a story in a weekly lifestyle magazine where they interviewed 4 restaurant owners who were shutting down their restaurants. The problem was not a one of them was shutting down their restaurant because of the minimum wage. One of them was closing it up because she was opening up 2 others. One of them had sold the restaurant. It was, on and on and on. I'm going, this is crazy. And so I actually delved into it, did a lot of interviews. You could read my piece on this at Forbes.com. It had nothing to do with the minimum wage. Now, again, I can't tell you if this increase is going to hurt the business or not. I can tell you that the head of the Restaurant Association that we just cited has totally calmed down on this and has said, yeah, there'll be some changes, but it's all going to be fine. Everybody will get through. And I can also tell you that they've done the math on this, and you're looking at about a 5 cents on the dollar increase on your bill.
Yeah, I disagree with you, and
What's
here's
to
why
disagree with about? We don't know yet.
For starters, we do, because
We do?
we have a $9 minimum wage in Seattle, higher than a lot of the country. And by the way, 2013, that's that's what Obama was saying his goal
Yeah, how
minimum
do we
wage
know
was.
the restaurants are shutting down?
So, well, I mean, if you look at the profit margin, you can well, first of all, you can look at where this has happened before, and the 40% minimum wage increase at the federal level ended up costing
Let's stick with
550,000
Seattle because
jobs.
you said you disagree. Tell
Yes,
me
I do
why.
disagree. So, if you want to look at the profit margin side of it,
Yeah.
why I think it's going to have an impact, 36%.
No. You're saying you think it's going to. I didn't tell you it wasn't. You told me you disagreed when I said that it couldn't possibly have had one yet.
I think
now,
it
can
already
I also?
has had
no,
an
it
impact
hasn't. Show
because
me.
you can look
Where's
at it
the evidence?
nationally.
Jillian has the floor.
I think
Where's the evidence?
You can look at it nationally, and we know that it costs jobs. Okay, so how high is too high to have a minimum wage where it doesn't cost jobs? What's the level at which you think it's not
You
going to
want
have
to
an
get me
impact?
into this discussion about all that stuff. All I'm saying
just
is
give me a number. It's a
you
simple theoretic.
No, I didn't say anything to the contrary. I said that in Seattle, not the nation, in Seattle, we have no evidence of yet. You may turn out to be right.
I absolutely do think that we
What's
have
the
evidence
evidence?
on a
In
national
Seattle.
level. We know from national times that we've raised minimum wage that it has had an impact on jobs.
So-
and I think your refusal to answer how high you think it can go
Heather,
without
Oh,
I
raising
have no
jobs-
idea how high it can go.
How is
That's
Seattle?
not a refusal. I don't know.
But when you're trying to figure
But
things
that's not
out,
the
but
point.
how is Seattle
So Seattle's
different?
unique.
Because Seattle's the one that raised it to $15.
Right.
And Seattle was the point of what we're talking about. We can talk
So
about
you're
Tuscaloosa,
making the argument
but
that
I haven't researched Tuscaloosa. I've researched Seattle.
Well, and why? But I think you're now arguing apples and oranges because you're not saying
Yeah.
necessarily that the minimum wage is even going to be better and that it's not going to be worse. You're just saying we don't know that yet
We
for
don't know it
Seattle.
yet. That's
But I
exactly
think
what
that
I'm saying.
you'll agree
I'm
then that
saying-
Jillian's right that as far as nationally, we have seen that it has actually led to a decline in
Really?
employment to population ratio.
Really?
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
When was the last time we
May
had
I
a
jump
minimum
in?
wage increase?
So I always thought there was compromise in this. There's always compromise with numbers, right? And we're almost out of time. But I always thought where
We
it
should
currently
continue
is
this.
right now is too low. The 15 is too high, and maybe 11 is the right number. And Rick's right to a certain extent where we don't know what will happen when it goes to 15.
We don't.
Right, but.
We know it'll cost you an additional 5 cents for every
There are
dollar.
Okay,
we
we'll
know
continue this
4%
after the break. Coming up next, potluck time. We're going to continue this discussion, though, right on the other side of the break. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV.
I really want it.
Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's potluck time, but first, the last conversation was so compelling that I'd like to give another minute and a half so everybody could get their final points in. First question, this is going to be a lightning round, all right? What is the proper level for a minimum wage in terms of dollars?
I think it's what the market demands. And with this in Seattle, you've got 36% of restaurants revenue coming to employment. You've got 30% going to, I think, rent and other expenses, and then 30% going to food. So they're really only getting a 4% profit margin. I think that $15 thing is really going to push them out of the limits. And I think we know there's a correlation. You raise minimum wage, that's got to come out of somewhere. It's going to result in higher prices, lower employment.
Heather.
I would say I agree with Jillian in the fact that you saw Walmart raise theirs on their own to $9 and it's going to go to $10 next year. I think that the fast food places are looking to iPads instead of cashiers and automated burger flippers instead of people, and that's what you're going to see as you continue to raise the minimum wage.
Great point. I actually saw a story today that robots can replace half of American workers by 2027.
There's no question about it, but that's not because of the minimum wage. But my point is simple. We look at the numbers of restaurant closings in Seattle last February. We look at the number this February. The restaurant business is better off this February than they were last February. They're not closing at the same rate. If this is such a big threat, why aren't more of them closing up? And how do we know it's this big threat when it hasn't happened yet? It's that simple.
Will it be a big issue in the 2016 campaign?
No.
No.
Seattle?
I don't
No,
think
not
so.
Seattle. I'm
It's
just saying minimum wage in
Minimum
general.
wage. I
Yes.
think it's income inequality. I think
Yeah.
that's what it goes
In
along
a
with.
big-
I
the
think
bigger
that's
picture,
right.
bigger
It's a
picture.
bigger picture.
Bigger
I agree
picture.
with that.
Okay, very good. And now it's time for potluck. This is the part of the show where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. Heather Hansen, we talking minimum wage or something else?
I will talk quickly. The new FEMA guidelines are going to could make it difficult for some governors to get some of the funds that they're looking for, because now their risk management assessment has to include language that refers to climate change. And for those governors like Chris Christie and Jindal, who do not believe in climate change and may not want to include that type of language in their risk assessments, are not perhaps going to be able to get the money? It seems to me to be a little bit of extortion, where this is not something, it doesn't matter what caused the flood. If you're preparing for a flood, why do you have to say a flood caused by climate change instead of just simply saying we're preparing for a flood? It really seems to me that it infringes on First Amendment, it seems extortion, it seems unnecessary, and it seems yet another reason that these climate change issues, again, get away from the true issue and it just becomes political.
For anybody who watches House of Cards, I found it interesting that President Frank Underwood took money from FEMA to fund a jobs program because he said it was a national crisis. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see that, correct?
No, I would hope not. But you know what? This is a slippery slope, and to start pressuring people to say things that they don't believe in order to get federal money for their constituents for things like floods, it is really, really a stretch, and I think it's a problem.
We're going through an amazing streak right now of no major hurricanes hitting the U.S. mainland after we heard that climate change was going to create, all these superstorms. So hopefully I just didn't jinx it.
Right.
And it's probably going to start snowing in the second year anyway. So
yeah, we've had it.
Who are we kidding? Anyway, Jillian, you are up next.
I am. So I want to talk a bit about the Department of Interior's new fracking regulations. And I think one of the unintended consequences of them is going to really hurt Native Americans. Let me explain why. Okay. So these regulations apply not only to federal lands, but also to tribal lands. And tribal lands have an outsized share of natural resources, energy resources, but they're already really underdeveloped. And that's because, in contrast to state and private lands, 4 federal agencies oversee them. You've got 49 steps that you've got to go through. By singling out tribal lands and saying that they're subject to these new regulations, it's going to really hurt a population where you've already got extremely high unemployment, extremely high poverty levels, and very low high school graduation. And I think that's just reprehensible.
Rick, you're a pragmatic liberal.
It's interesting, and I'm actually a supporter of fracking. My take on the regulations is they must be doing something right. I base that on the fact that the day they came out, I got calls from the environmentalists complaining, and I got calls from the industry complaining. So if nobody was happy, that's usually a sure sign they're getting something right. You have to remember that these only apply to federal lands
and tribal
lands. That's right. But they may well be adopted by the states. They typically are. You have an interesting point.
I think that's exactly what it's setting out to do. Is set a national standard.
Yeah, I don't think that they were that burdensome.
Well, they weren't, but I think what it is dangerous to do is set a federal standard for fracking, because if you look at it, states have actually done an extremely good job regulating it. Most of them have.
Yeah.
Most of them have, and most of them are already doing what the federal government proposes in these plans. But I think, adding that extra bureaucracy, and particularly for Native Americans, not letting them manage their own land is pretty insulting.
Yeah, I get that point.
We allow them to have
casinos.
I'm
all for local control of it, state and local control.
So who would control, though, for those lands?
I would hope the tribal councils are. I don't know a lot about how that is managed, but I think it's kind of their right to decide whether or not to frack and how to monitor that, because they're the ones that are going to be the most impacted by it.
What if it has an impact on other people outside of the reservation when it comes to water?
Well, states are looking at that too, so I think that would potentially be a legal issue. But
the
states are
don't
doing
have control over them.
I know what I have control over this segment, and we have to take a break here. So when we come back, we'll have even more potluck for you, including my own. This is the Daily Wrap, as you know, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha. If you're just joining us, we're in the middle of our potluck, where we're sharing our favorite stories of the day. And I am up. Cell phones getting an F in school. Read some stories today about widespread cheating in America's high schools today by, get this, Twitter, for starters. Kids actually on their cell phones sending tweets back and forth to each other, or texts back and forth to each other, or just having answers altogether on their phones. And it got me thinking, why are students even allowed to have cell phones in a classroom in the first place? Now, there is a safety concern, I get that, particularly after Columbine in 1999, where a lot of students were using even cell phones then, and it wasn't quite as popular to, obviously call for help in 911. So there's always that, well, they should have it just in case, but the teacher could very easily just pick up the phone and call 911, no question. And it made me think back to when I was in school and the way I used to see people cheat. And even when I was in adult school one time, check out how this guy tried to pull off cheating on a test. what does KGB stand for? That was from Spies Like Us, actually, admittedly. I believe a 1985 movie, Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, a classic, probably one of the most underrated ever. But that's how you used to have to cheat. And now, hey, just bring your cell phone to class, and if the teacher's not looking, plenty of information you could put on one of these little screens right here, no question. So that is basically my potluck, everybody. Should cell phones be allowed in high school classes? Yay or nay? Jillian.
I'll say yay. I'll be the contrarian. I think, it's sometimes used for cheating, but it's a matter of convenience. You can use it as a calculator. You can use it to stay in touch. Probably helps with studying. I'm all for it.
A calculator. What's the point of even taking algebra?
I think take it away for tests. They can have it at school, take it away for tests.
Agreed.
After my whatever we pay people in Seattle crisis, you and I are agreeing on everything.
I know.
I agree, yay. I mean, it's a fact of life, cell phones. It's not going anywhere.
Okay, I say yay, and this isn't yay or nay, but what the hell? I mean, we're voting on this. I say yeah, bring the cell phone in, and when you walk into the class, where that basket used to be where you gave your teacher apples, right there, and then you take it when you leave.
You're
It's
still
pretty
giving
simple.
apples.
What's that?
You're still giving apples.
See,
right.
that's right. You're giving her an apple.
That's a very good point. I'm giving you the floor.
I thought you were going to give me something else there when you went. In this week's Irony is a Wonderful Thing department, you know how we have red states, we have blue states. Blue states apparently think that we should be taxing everybody to the max. Red states don't particularly care for federal income taxes. Well, look, money that we all pay in federal taxes in a large respect ends up going back to these states. But of course, red states, because they oppose taxes, or federal taxes anyhow, would certainly be getting less of that money than the blue states, right? Blue states must be getting a lot more money. Otherwise, why would they be so into taxes? Wrong. Study out, and let's put up that graphic. Take a look at this. Blue states are less dependent on the federal government than red states. In fact, I just took the top four and the bottom four. The four least dependent states in this country are New Jersey, Delaware, Illinois, and Minnesota. For most dependent states, New Mexico, Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama. As you can see, the top four are typically identified as blue states, the bottom four as red states. So what's the deal with that? If these people in the red states are so opposed to paying federal taxes, why are they taking more of my money than I get coming back to my state? Anybody got an answer?
I'm just going to toss two things out, and I'd love an answer on this. First of all, is this looking at the ratio between state and federal funding?
Oh, you mean how much comes into the state? No, it's looking at the amount of money it's paid to the feds and comes back to the state.
And does it factor in population?
I don't know if it does or not.
It does not.
Because I think those are two things that could really skew the study and skew your point.
And age. Age is another
But
thing
actually,
that
I don't know, because New Jersey has a much wait. New Jersey, it doesn't make a lot of sense. New Mexico, which was the worst, right, you would think they'd have a much bigger population if that's the case, and yet they're one of the smallest populated states in the country. So I'm not sure population does figure.
Age is going to be a big factor, though, and we don't know the age. I read the study after you sent it this morning, because if you're getting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, that would be a
you think
huge
there's
part.
more old people in Kentucky, Mississippi, and Alabama than in New Jersey?
Well, I think you need to know, and
Yeah, I
also
think it's
you
a
know that
fascinating
those are the
study.
poorest.
Yes, there
those
are. They all leave New Jersey.
Yeah.
Florida.
I don't think they do. For
It's all
Florida,
tricky.
yes,
It's
but
all
Florida is. Thank you. If your assessment is right, how can Florida not be on that list, and yet they're not?
I mean, poverty is a big part of it too. You're talking about some of the top five
whatever
poorest
it is,
states.
whatever it is, those people are in those states, and they're red
They're
states
reaping the
getting
benefits.
more of the money. You can explain it any way that's comfortable to you, but it doesn't change the fact that
it's a
they're
fascinating-
getting all the
We
money.
gotta go. Either way, Rick has become the Ross Perot of the Daily Wrap. Put up that shot. Anyway, when we come back, it's time for Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap, full of graphics, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, is there anything better than the smell of a hot, juicy hamburger? Specifically, a Burger King Whopper. Wouldn't you love to breathe in that delicious scent all day long? Well, now you can with Burger King's limited edition flame-grilled fragrance as I go to my cologne voice. The cologne will only be sold for one day, April 1st. Not an April Fool's Day joke either. In Japan, it's not a joke. So how much will smelling like a Whopper cost you? Only $40. But you do get a Whopper with your purchase. Would you, Rick Unger, get the new burger-scented cologne, yay or nay?
I have to disagree with you. It very much is a joke. Nay.
No, it's really happening.
Oh, no, I know it's happening,
Yes.
but it's a joke. That's disgusting.
So you're a nay then?
Yeah, I'm a big-time nay.
Fascinating. Now, you can't wear cologne, Heather.
Right.
Would you buy it for your
man?
significant other? Yes.
No. There's a company called Demeter that makes colognes that smell like things like Play-Doh, sushi, turpentine. So this is, I think, just a roll off that, and a lot of people like those single note fragrances.
If Heather or Jillian had said yay, and we'll see if Jillian does, I'm changing my vote.
Okay, done.
I'm
Jillian.
going to say yay because
I
it's
changed
two,
my vote,
two
yay.
reasons. It's being marketed in Japan, which I think is really fascinating. And also, I'm just curious what's going to happen. I mean, do you think it's got pheromones in it? Pheromones. Do you think that this is something that's going to remind people?
I don't know what that is.
So, like with scents, there are different things. Like men are supposed to like perfume
is
that has
sexual
notes
attraction.
of vanilla or notes of
Oh.
apple
Cinnamon.
pie. Maybe it's the Whopper.
Okay, I'm changing my vote. Jillian said she's a yay, then
Changing
I'm
your
a
vote.
yay.
I'm a yay, absolutely. I love the smell of a good burger. I would buy this.
I'm just interested.
I
in
really
this
would.
social
Like a good
experiment.
I'd fly to Tokyo to get this.
I think you should.
Yes.
Bring back a
You
little
could just,
extra.
we'll just
Jillian
rub
will,
a burger all over you
give it
on the
away.
next show.
I mean, as a guy who wore Jakar in the
That's
80s,
really
could it
awful.
really be all that different? Anyway, the Pi Kappa Psi fraternity at the University of Virginia telling ABC News they feel vindicated after Charlottesville police found no evidence of the alleged rape at their frat house. So vindicated, in fact, that they're now exploring legal options regarding the article in Rolling Stone magazine in which the alleged rape victim, Jackie, said that she was gang raped by 7 men at a frat party back in 2012. Can the UVA fraternity win a lawsuit against Rolling Stone, Heather Hansen?
I think absolutely. They're going to start with damages, and they have damages from the money that they lost from a whole host of different areas, alumni donations, all kinds of things, and then just work backwards. And you've got a really strong case, especially now that the police have come forward and said that there was nothing to the investigation. I think early April they're going to come forward with a review of the entire thing from Columbia
University.
That will be the final nail in their coffin if it's true.
Jen.
Absolutely. This is textbook libel. I mean, I think this is very instructive of what happens when you go to report a story with an idea already in mind. That reporter had something she wanted to find. She found what she wanted to find. Unfortunately, it had nothing to do with the truth and caused a great deal of damage.
Rick?
They're clearly right. Yes, they can most certainly sue Rolling Stone if it turns out to be a lie. The only thing, and maybe you have more updated information, my understanding is the police haven't yet said that it's not true. They said they're having trouble getting
Can't find
information.
She wouldn't talk to them.
She won't talk to them,
Right.
exactly.
So they have said that their
End of
investigation
story.
led to nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
then there's definitely a lawsuit there.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a yay as well. And here's the best part, and this is why you should root against Rolling Stone. They still have that BS story up on their website. So
really?
yeah, you can still go read about it
That
because
is surprising.
Yes, it gets clicked because Jan Wenner is just a despicable human being. Anyway, okay, all you romantic types out there, watch this.
I met the woman of my dreams at 34,000 feet. So I figured it's time to continue our lives at 34,000 feet. Randy Holiday, I've loved you since the moment I met you. And I want to be the man for you for the rest of your life. Will you marry me?
Okay, call me evil, but I was so rooting for her to say no. Because then what do? Nowhere to go. Get your parachute, quick yay or nay. Would you accept a proposal at 34,000 feet?
Depends on the man.
Good point. Heather?
I wouldn't love it. It's not the best way to propose for sure.
Can't think of a worse location unless it's your own private plane.
Yeah,
Very
that's not
good
a bad
point.
idea.
I am a yay. No, I'm an A. I just changed my mind. I wouldn't do it. It's just cheesy.
Yeah, it's
just
cheesy.
cheesy.
Too many people
But you
around.
could join that old club they have up there.
You can do that without the rain.
Yeah, that's
Anyway, President Obama is set to name 2 new aides soon. First, on tap to become his new senior advisor is Shayla Murray, a former Washington Post and Wall Street Journal reporter, whom the president has come to depend on over the years for her, quote, strategic advice and keen ability to cut through the noise. Let's get right to the yay or nay. According to my research, this will now make 23 former media members joining the Obama administration. Good idea for this little bridge to keep happening quickly.
Well, on one hand, everyone knows journalists are
Very
the
quickly.
smartest. on the other hand, bias.
Heather.
Yeah, no.
It's okay with
Rick.
me.
It seems to be the way things go these days. Communications reporter, back to the White House. Panel, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha saying bye-bye.